a win, but going out in a war against Max Holloway where you showed that you could definitely still contend in this division is about as close as you can get, I think.
Welcome to the Fighters Forecast.
What's happening? Welcome back. Fighters Forecast, episode 37. I think I got it right this time. I'm usually not very confident, but I'm on it today. We're back. It's been a freaking massive weekend for combat sports. I think there was like 5 events yesterday. PFL was in Africa. UFC was in Louisiana. Boxing was, I think, somewhere in England. But huge weekend. Obviously, the stuff we care about the most and the stuff you guys care about the most is UFC 318, Poirier versus Holloway. But before that gets started, because we do have a lot to get to today. Drew, how you doing? It's about 2 weeks until we move into Chapel Hill. I'm excited. I know you're excited. The people should be excited. If you like what we're doing here, just get ready for what we're going to have going on there. But Drew, what's been going on in your life, man?
I mean, I'm literally just trying to power through my internship, just get through that.
When do you stop with that?
So literally, the last day is July 31st. The main issue is that, so I work for a baseball team, and we have like a laundry schedule. So you have to like on some days I'm designated to work, and do the laundry for the uniforms. So I'm scheduled to do laundry on August 1st, which is the day I move in. So I gotta. I'm in the process of finding someone to replace me for that. But after that, I mean, I'm done. So
yeah,
that's the main thing. I was out of town Saturday evening, so I actually so I stopped in Chapel Hill on my way back home and scouted out my apartment.
Checking the digs out. Nice.
Yeah, so not too bad, and then it was perfect timing too, because right as I got home, 318 was starting. So. Not too bad. Yep.
Yeah, I finished up with my stuff the day before I move in, but I'm trying to get into writing for the website right now, Uncrowned. I'm actually drafting up a story about Craig Jones. I know you're a big fan of him, Drew, with his retirement and all that stuff. So maybe if that gets published, I'll send it your way. That'd be pretty sweet. But yeah, without further ado, 318 Poirier Holloway 3. What a fight, man. The whole card was actually really surprisingly good. We were talking about it before we got going here, but on paper, Paulo Costa versus Kopylov in the co-main event of a pay-per-view fight, not the fight you were looking forward to most, but it actually ended up being a really good fight, just like every other fight on the card. But obviously, we should probably start from the top down. Max Holloway defeating Poirier in a really good fight. I saw a lot of people online saying that it wasn't a very good fight, and it really kind of blew me away because in my head, I know that probably obviously the second fight was better. They both have had wars in their career, but I mean, I thought Poirier was out of it from the very beginning of that fight. When was it round 2 when Max knocked him down, or was it round 1?
He got him good in the first round,
yeah.
And then they traded knockdowns in the second, I believe.
Yeah, the second. I mean, Max had him he had his back, he had him mounted, and then Poirier knocked him down, went for the good. I don't really know how much more exciting you could want there, but in my head, Poirier's retiring. Obviously, I picked Poirier, you picked Max, so kudos to you. But I was really worried after that second round, honestly, that we were going to see Poirier go out in the worst way possible, which was kind of get starched and put out, and his career was kind of end off in a way we didn't like to see. But, it was a semi-clear win for Max Holloway, in my opinion. I think you agree, and I think most people would agree. Probably 4-1, maybe 3-2 if you're going to stretch it out pretty far. But I would still say that the consensus from what I've seen, and I think as well, that Dustin Poirier went out on a good note because, it's very rare that you get to go out on a win, but going out in a war against Max Holloway where you showed that you could definitely still contend in this division is about as close as you can get, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I think this is the best way that Dustin could have gone out, because I feel like you said, had he got knocked out in the first round, I feel like it would have just left a bad taste in everybody's mouth. I think losing in the way he did, I felt like you said, showed that he is still one of the best fighters at lightweight. It was it's crazy just how good Max Holloway's striking is. I would argue I do feel like with Max Holloway's move up to lightweight, I feel like his head movement, maybe his like striking defense, is like declined just slightly, but his striking compared with his like power as he's moved up is just on a whole different level. And I genuinely thought that he was going to take Poirier out in that first round after he dropped him the first time, but like you said, I think in the way he lost too, like it never really seemed like Dustin was necessarily out of the fight. I feel like like after he got dropped in the first, he was able to knock down Max Holloway in the second round. Like the only people that we've seen do that is, I mean, on a technicality, Justin Gaethje and Ilia Topuria, and to be able to go out that way and then having him like stand and bang with Max Holloway at the end, I feel like it kind of just like put a nice little ribbon on his career. And honestly, I think it helps a little bit too that he lost. I feel like if he had gone out winning, there always would have been that thought in the back of his head, like, oh well, what if I was like still at the top of my game? Like, how much farther could I have gone? And I think this, in a way, shows, yes, I'm still at the level where I could compete, but in a way, it's better for me to go out now while I still can, instead of, like, creating false hope and that, like, resonating in regret going forward. But I thought it was a really good fight. I mean, I was really nervous, like, because my opinion, and it kind of dwindled a little bit just because after the fourth round, I remember Dustin's team told him that they thought it was 2-2, and in my mind, I thought it. I mean, it's debatable maybe, but in my mind, I was thinking it was either 3-1 Max, or you could even argue 4-1 Max. I think, or 4-0 Max. I think that second round is as 50-50 of a round as you can possibly get. But I was just worried that like that Dustin was going to catch him again, but obviously I thought it was really an entertaining fight. There was some other good fights on the card, obviously, but like Max Holloway said, like I do not know how this wasn't fight of the night material, especially with the legacy and the just overall importance of the fight in general. But yeah, a really great fight.
Yeah, it seemed to me that their striking was definitely pretty close. Dustin Poirier obviously has such great boxing defense, but the speed of Max Holloway and just the ability that he has to put together combos, like I think it was clearly the most apparent at the end, that last 10 seconds when he pointed at the ground in classic Max Holloway fashion, and they were going back and forth, and clearly you could see. I think Dustin caught him with a really good hook at one point, but you could clearly tell that Dustin could just not hang with the speed of Max in the pocket like that, and so he did have to clinch up. But tons of respect to both guys. And another thing on how maybe it was good that Dustin kind of went out that way. It doesn't mess up Max Holloway's career. If Dustin's gonna retire, then there's not really, win doesn't really do that much for him. But Max Holloway is still on the hunt for Ilia Topuria, as he called out for after. And I guess before we move on to the next fight, Drew, what do you want next? There's nothing to predict for Dustin Poirier, but there's definitely something to predict for Max Holloway. I've seen a lot of people call for Max Charles, which I think could be really fun. Obviously, there is Paddy Pimblett, like you sent me earlier. There's the title shot. There's a lot of intrigue in this division right now, and I don't really know what to do. I think in my head, the clearest option for him would probably be Charles Oliveira, just because I think that they're either going to make Ilya Paddy or Ilya Arman. But what do you think? I also think Max Oliveira is just insanely exciting, and that is also a rematch from their days at featherweight.
I mean, I think Oliveira's a good one. I think it seems like if Paddy doesn't fight for the title next, like it seems like the next guy's got to be either Gaethje or Arman. It would be nice to do Arman just because I feel like they kind of have like a little bit of a beef to some extent. But I do think that if Paddy isn't going to fight for the belt, I find it hard to imagine that Gaethje would be the next option. I think it would end up being Arman. So, and I just think Gaethje and Paddy kind of pair up better together in a way. Not to say that Max and Paddy wouldn't be good, but also from like a promotion standpoint, it would be cool to see like Max Holloway and Charles Oliveira fight, because I believe they have already fought before.
Yeah, they did.
If I'm not wrong, because that
Back
was the
in
one
featherweight days.
like
Yeah.
where Charles, like I believe, like hurt his throat or something like that,
Yes.
and kind of like ended the fight prematurely. But that would be a good one, also because it's kind of like a very similar pathway in the way that Charles got back to the belt, where Charles fought. Wait, no. Because remember, Charles fought Beneil, and then he fought Armand, that one didn't go as well, and then he fought Charles. I mean, then he fought Michael Chandler,
Michael
and then he
Chandler.
eventually got back to the belt. And it'd be a very similar pathway to the way in which Max Holloway would get back, where Max Holloway would beat Justin Gaethje, fights Ilia Topuria, doesn't work out the way he does, and then he fights this older, previous like prospect who is kind of like in this limbo, and hopefully like see where it goes from there. So I think it would be a good matchup, and also just because their styles kind of, I wouldn't say they clash, but I do think they are on very different ends of the spectrum. Not to say that Charles doesn't have striking, or I mean, not to say that Charles doesn't have striking by any means, but like Max Holloway is kind of the epitome of striking to some extent within the division, and then I mean Charles Oliveira leads the UFC in submissions, so it'd be a really interesting fight, and they're both kind of in similar areas within their careers, so I think that would be a fun one to see.
Yeah, there's a lot of excitement at 155. It's a division that was kind of ruled by the guys like Michael Chandler, Dustin Poirier, Tony Ferguson, Conor McGregor, like those. Obviously, I'm kind of mixing up eras a little bit there, but kind of the older regime for a while there. So, seeing Max move up and make a run, seeing Ilya's success, Armin, Gaethje is kind of the last guy that's still up from that older group, but Patty, seeing these guys is really exciting. And I will say the fights that I would still, rankings aside, whatever, the fights that I would be most excited to see Ilya up against next would be Paddy Pimblett or a rematch with Max Holloway. I don't care how it went at 145. I would still love to see those fights. I think Armin, I know he's getting the next title shot, maybe, based on from what I've seen and what the UFC seemed to be targeting. But I feel like that he's still kind of on the hot seat with the UFC because of all of his weight issues and pullouts. So it'll definitely be really interesting to see. And props to the Diamond. We kind of gave him his respect in the last one, gave him his flowers, but props to the Diamond. I really hope this retirement sticks. I think he looked great in this fight, but I don't want to see him in a fight where he doesn't look great. And yeah, that was the main event. So I think we should probably move on to the co-main here. Less stakes on this one, less stakes than the rest of the card, to be honest. But a pretty good fight. Paulo Costa beating Roman Kopylov by decision. I don't remember what we picked here. I think
You picked Paulo
picked,
Costa, and I
yeah.
picked Roman Kopylov.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. So that wasn't really going off of anything except for I like watching vintage Paulo Costa. I can't say that I thought that he would look like vintage Paulo Costa, really, but he did. He looked really fast in there. His counters looked really good. Caught him with a slick right hand. He was kind of bouncing in and out like a Whitaker or a Wonder Boy. It was really interesting. But he looked really good, and definitely. I don't know if I would say Kopylov was on a hype train because he is the same age as Costa. Neither of them are very young, but he definitely kind of showed that he is still in the part of his career where he could be a viable contender, or at least hold that kind of gatekeeper position where he's not going to get beat out by the unranked guys yet. And yeah, I guess he is unranked. Well, he'll make it back up there. Is he
Oh, he was
unranked?
like 14th, I believe.
Okay, sorry
Or I could be wrong, but because I feel like I
okay.
remember seeing that was like 13, 14.
Yes, I just don't think this picture we have here has the rankings
Oh
on.
yeah.
That's my bad. But yeah, vintage Paulo Costa. I was really impressed. Obviously, he caught out Chimaev like he always freaking does. Will he get that fight? I don't know, because from a lot of stuff that I'm hearing, Chimaev might not. I don't know. It seems like he's. I saw a little thing out there that Chimaev might not be in the UFC for that much longer. If he gets a win here, he might call it quits, just because health issues and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I guess we don't need to spend too much time on this one. But what do you think of Paulo Costa?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the thing I kind of got out of this fight was how confusing or how good is Sean Strickland? Because, I mean, I guess I was thinking that going into this fight, like, I was imagining that I just didn't see that Paulo Costa's like striking defense was really good in that Sean Strickland fight, and I felt like whenever he was going to go up against a more rangy, more fast striker that like diversifies their striking significantly more than how Sean Strickland does, I thought he was going to get caught. I thought he was going to take a lot more strikes, but it seemed like the complete opposite. I mean, And maybe he learned something from the style of Sean Strickland because I feel like he was implementing his jab a lot and just honestly constantly keeping Kopylov on his back foot. And I think that was something that really helped him in the sense that I think Kopylov does best, and like he's a natural kickboxer in my opinion. Like his fighting style reminds me like a lot of like a Valentina Shevchenko type style fighter, and Kopylov really finds success in his striking diversity. And I was expecting Kopylov to go in there, throw a lot of leg kicks, throw a lot of body shots, which he did a lot of body shots. I think that was where he got most of his damage for the most part, but I just didn't see that level of activity that I was expecting. And I guess I thought near the end of the fight that I assumed that Kopylov was going to be more aggressive because it was apparent that he was down 2 rounds. But that never really came, and I think that was just because of the constant pressure of Costa. And really, I think it just exhausted Costa. I mean, exhausted Kopylov, and Costa even got some really good strikes in a lot of the rounds. Never he did get one knockdown, but yeah, I mean, like, and I think Costa's striking diversity was just crazy too. Like if he landed almost 100 strikes, 35 to the head, 40 to the body, and then 24 leg kicks. He went 100 for 100, or he went 100% on his leg kicks in the fight. And comparing that to Kopylov, the numbers just are not the same. And it seemed like Costa was just significantly better in that fight. And I don't know if he learned something from Sean Strickland and just massively improved in the time that he hasn't been there, or like you said, maybe he just is like one of those gatekeeper guys that, despite not being able to maybe reach the top levels at this moment at least, is still able to show a lot of these prospects how it's done. So I was very impressed by Paulo Costa.
Yep. Or he drank his secret juice. Maybe that was his, maybe that's all he needed. I don't know if you remember this, but
Yeah.
you do. But that secret juice Paulo Costa was probably the scariest version of Paulo Costa we've ever seen. It was like pre-Whitaker Costa to me. You know, it was improved pre-Whitaker Costa, and I think whatever was in that secret juice was kind of wearing off for a while, but it's back, and I can't wait to see what he gets into next. So, on to the next one. Daniel Rodriguez, Kevin Holland. I think this one got fight of the night. Took it from, or was it Vittori and Allen? It was one of those two. Okay.
Vittori Allen, yes.
So
this might have got. I think this got like a performance of the night.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, crazy fight. Kevin Holland was one of if not the biggest favorite heading into this fight. A lot of people were riding him, including us. It was. I mean, you can see the odds there: -650. Going the other way, +425. There was a lot going into that. I think D-Rod is 38. Kevin Holland, this is his 4th fight of the year, so we talked about it before. Momentum is big in the UFC. It was booked as a welterweight kind of veteran match between two really solid guys, and obviously Kevin has made it farther in his career, but these are kind of scrappers, and it seemed to me like it was kind of put on this card to just give it a little bit of juice, leading up to the main event. But D-Rod did not take any of that, and he decided to put on a vintage performance, and I'm talking like it was a dominant performance. It was a close fight. It didn't seem like a close fight for a while because Kevin was getting beat up. But if you look at the strike counts that we have up here, it was a pretty close fight. D-Rod put him down significantly. In my head, it was more than 2 times, but it was pretty unreal. And then Kevin came back. That uppercut, did you see the uppercut that he landed to drop him? It was so weird because it looked like it was like an arm punch, but he just fell back. It was really strange to me. But he put him down. And he put on a good performance, and he probably took Kevin Holland's ranking. So, we were wrong. That's all I got to say.
Yeah. This was a weird fight for me. I mean, there's a lot of reasons to say it was a weird fight. I mean, if you look at this fight on paper, you could probably, like, if you knew nothing about this fight, you'd probably assume that, like, maybe it was a split decision win for Kevin Holland. I mean, but at the same time, you can also make the argument for Rodriguez. But all things, it didn't seem like Kevin Holland was there. like I feel like that's the kind of the gist that I got out of that. Like I just didn't see a lot. Feel like I saw a lot of activity. I didn't. And honestly, like if you look at back at his last two fights, 2 or 3 fights, it. He's finished them so quickly that maybe this is just how his fights would have been had they gone farther distances. Like, it. I mean, if you look at his armbar victory, I believe at the beginning of the year, that the only reason that happened was because he got knocked down. Like he was very close to getting knocked out. Was able to. I don't know if he was either like I think he was able to set up like a high guard and then was able to clinch the armbar from there. But I mean that had that fight gone like slightly differently, then he would start off with a loss. Luque, that was a quick fight, but I mean it was a not super competitive performance from Luque, and I get we just haven't seen Kevin Holland go the distance in a little bit, and maybe it's just an issue with constantly being in camp. Like this dude, it's been 7 months, and this guy's fought in 4 of them. I mean,
Yeah.
and the thing is, even if you're just fighting in 1 month, you're still in camp for in
The whole
preparation
year and
for fighting
more. Yeah.
beforehand. So I mean, and at the same time, like, and we've talked about this before, like Kevin Holland isn't like a guy that's shooting for championship belts or anything. Like he's just kind of this. Let me fight as many times as possible. Let me put on some good fights, get performance bonuses, and make my money. But at the same time, sometimes you burn out, and I'm not to say that Kevin Holland is burned out by any means, but it's very difficult to be this active and perform consistently at a high level,
Yeah.
especially when the fight goes longer than 5 minutes, which Kevin Holland has not been used to in recently.
It seemed very obvious very quickly that it was one of those fights where you kind of look back on and you're like, dang, Kevin Holland probably should not have been a minus 650 favorite. You know what I mean? Like one of those ones where it just kind of, you kind of wonder why a guy like Kevin Holland would be a favorite. When like you kind of said, it is not like he ever really dominates these guys when it goes that far into the fight. But, all respect to D-Rod. I think Kevin Holland can still break the record for the most fights in a year. I think the record is 5 set by him, and he can definitely get 6. I mean, Kevin Holland can easily get 2 more fights this year. Break that
Short
record.
notice 319.
Seriously, give him put him in the backup for JDM Islam. Just do it, dude. Yeah, but that was a fight. Not too many stakes. You'll kind of see as we go down this card that the stakes kind of lessen and lessen and lessen. But none of these fights were unexciting. Which when you see decisions on pay-per-views, that is usually how it is. Now this one, I kind of been eating my own words here. Wasn't the most exciting fight. Patricio Pitbull needed a win. He came in highly touted from Bellator and then PFL, one of the best fighters in that organization's history. Multi-time champion. Was up there. Was one of those guys outside the UFC for a long time that people were like, "Wow, like if this guy came over, he would make some serious damage to some of these guys." But did not perform in his debut fight. And I think that could have come down to a lot of things. We had a lot of conversations about this. It could have been the bright lights, could have been all that stuff. I think it kind of just came down to Yair Rodriguez being Yair Rodriguez and probably beating, most guys in this division at this point in his career, if you're not Alex Volkanovski or Max Holloway. Or I guess Brian Ortega, he got that win under his belt too. But decent performance by Patricio Pitbull. He had flashes of, I think, what we had seen from him in the past. But, I know he needed a win here. But in my opinion, to kind of get himself pushed to the position that I think he wants to be, and clearly the UFC wants him to be because they're giving him these kind of big profile matchups on big cards. I think he kind of needed a finish here or something that at least showed a little bit more. I don't know what you think of that, but I was impressed, but I was a little bit let down by this fight, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree. And the primary issue for me isn't necessarily that this wasn't like a knockout finish. It was the issue for me more so is that Pitbull seemed slightly above the level of Dan Ige, if that makes sense. And don't get me wrong, like he was not like he barely like he was just not able to like produce a lot of action in that Yair Rodriguez fight, and that's just simply because like you said, Yair Rodriguez is Yair. But even in this fight, like I think the thing that really just separated Pitbull from Ige was just his accuracy. Like he was basically striking over 50% for the entire fight, and when you can, and I mean, and realistically, Dan Ige had more activity. If you really look at it, I think he gassed out, and on top of being taken down 4 times, like that, the amount of energy it required to not only stuff 9 takedowns, but get up from 5 of them. I mean, it just takes so much down from you, and don't get me wrong, Pitbull is not necessarily like in the prime of his career at this point. Like he's on arguably on the downside, and it's for the fact that he's able to perform against a guy like Danny Ye, who, me personally, I thought Danny Ye was going to win. I think I
Me
don't
too.
remember.
Yeah,
Like,
me too.
I mean, Danny Ye is a guy that's been able to go like, and his striking has been very good. I remember his knockout of
Sean Tucker.
Philly, or I was thinking of Philly like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I could be
Yeah.
wrong.
Hmm.
And then also just his performance against Diego Lopez. I thought he was going to have a lot more activity and really put Pitbull on his back foot, but that just didn't really seem to be the case here. And like you said, I am impressed to an extent. I did not think, like, I'm surprised that Pitbull did win, but it kind of just, I guess the kind of idea and feeling I'm getting out is just, like, I don't really know where to go from this. If we look at the rankings, I mean, this is featherweight. So let me see. So we got Danny Gay. He's at 11. I mean, I honestly, I think a fight with Josh Emmett would be fun. I think that would be a
Yeah.
good one that you could maybe do. I mean, John Silva should not. I mean, John Silva realistically should not be at the 10th spot. Do not give him John Silva, but maybe that, maybe Aljo, maybe Brian Ortega. Honestly, be a backup for Ortega versus Aljamain. Yeah, I mean, I think, and I don't
Do you
think,
agree
I
with
don't
me
think,
though that sorry to interrupt, but
sorry.
it seemed like the sentiment coming from last fight was that Pitbull was kind of not living up to his potential. Do you think that this performance rewrites that wrong, or do you think that he kind of needed a little bit more oomph to kind of get there in the brass's mind?
I guess it depends on what you think Pitbull's potential was. Like, I don't think, like, mentally, I would not consider, I would not have gone into that fight expecting Pitbull to be a top 5 fighter. And the unfortunate reality is that he got put up against arguably a top 3 fighter.
Yeah.
I think if I was being realistic, I would say Pitbull at best, becomes maybe like a Jeff Neal of the featherweight division. Like, he's a really good fighter. He's obviously, if he beats a guy like Dan Ige, who is another gatekeeper within that division, but I mean, and that could be completely wrong. He could turn around, beat Aljamain Sterling, and be vying for a top 5 fight in the next year or so. But I do think he's past his prime, and I do think he's still a really good fighter. It shows that he's not incompetent. I think that was kind of the issue at the time. People were wondering, like, is he even like UFC material, because he was barely able to do anything that Yair fight. And I do think that does change the narrative a bit. I mean, obviously, it shows that he is competent enough to be a top 10 contender within within the featherweight division, but I don't think it necessarily expands past that. I think if anything, this kind of just showed the benchmark for where Pitbull kind of sits within that division, and in a way kind of displays where his ceiling is at this point in his career.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you put it great. It'll be interesting to see where both these guys go. Obviously, Pitbull in a little bit better of a position after getting a win there. But opening fight of the main card, I don't think either of us are going to spend that much time on this one. Big upset. This actually was the biggest favorite, sorry. And it was another upset. Daniel Zellhuber minus 900. Michael Johnson comeback plus 550. Michael Johnson putting together a sneaky little win streak. He actually knocked out Dustin Poirier early on in his career. He's always had lightning fast hands, and he just put it on Zellhuber. The striking was just a night and day. Clearly, Michael Johnson had the advantage there, and Zellhuber really did not put together the performance that I think anybody was expecting. Just seemed like he could not get his timing, couldn't get things going early on in this one. But that's kind of all I have to say. I don't really have much more on this one. I think this kind of halts momentum for Zellhuber, and I don't really think that Michael Johnson is going to go much farther up than this, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I watched this fight, I think I was in and out of this fight just a tiny bit, but the thing that sticks out to me the most is the striking accuracy
Yeah.
percentages. Look at Zell Huber's 52 for 182 strikes. That's a little less than 30%,
Yeah.
33%. But yeah, I mean, like you said, I don't think this fight really had any stakes. It is cool to see a guy like Michael Johnson, who's been around for such a long time, kind of still be able to stick around. But yeah, I mean, I just didn't really get anything out of this fight. Really, it just seemed that Michael Johnson's striking was a bit more crisp, but his defense was a little bit better, and I think that was really just the reality of it. Maybe Zell Huber just did not come into this fight like respecting Michael Johnson, and maybe that was just the reality of it. But I don't really have any questions
Yeah.
after this fight, or there's nothing I really have to take away from it other than that it was a fight.
It was. It
It
did
was a
happen.
fight.
Yeah. But yeah, that's the main card. Very solid main card, like you said. It could have been for sure a lot worse. It's not like other than the main event there was anything on here that would draw a fan in other than it could be an exciting fight. There was not really that many stakes on here. So yeah, gliding through the prelims kind of quickly. Vinicius Oliveira with a good decision win over Kyler Phillips. That was a fun fight. Vinicius very unorthodox, but kind of just overwhelmed Kyler. But I think a good last fight to talk about in this card, and I'm sure that you agree, or maybe not last, but last one, another one to really jump into because I know you want to talk about another prelim probably. But Brendan Allen versus Marvin Vettori. This one did get fight of the night. Really good fight. Kind of went a little bit like I think a lot of people probably not expected, but you have two really good grapplers. Brendan Allen, much more of a submission grappler. Marvin Vettori, much more of a kind of grind you up against the fence and take you down. One of those types. Brendan Allen just kind of put it on him. It was a really close fight, as you can see by the stats there. But it did just seem like Brendan Allen was a crisper, better boxer and was kind of able to hurt Vettori a couple times in a way that Vettori was not really able to answer back, at least towards the end of the fight. And yeah, you can see a couple takedowns in there as well. But what do you think of this one? Speaking of Sean Strickland, another guy that makes Sean Strickland look really good because he beat the crap out of Brendan Allen early on in his career.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like the biggest thing that I kind of take away from this fight is just when I look at I didn't look at the stats, but mentally when I imagined that fight again, I did not think the striking numbers were this close as they were. Maybe that's just like a damage bias because I remember because I mean Brendan Allen did cut him up right at the start of the fight, and honestly, it did look like he was about to finish Marvin Vettori. Knocked him down first, and then looked like he was gonna get some ground and pound. Then eventually got almost it looked like he had locked in a rear naked choke, but
Yeah,
really good back defense from Marvin Vettori. And then the rest of the fight, I wouldn't like the rest of the fight was extremely entertaining, but it did turn into kind of just like lots of volume, lots of jabbing. That's the thing I kind of took away from this fight.
yeah,
Lots and lots of jabbing. Vettori, I think after Vettori took that damage to his eye, it really just there wasn't a lot to do afterwards, and I think it did make it harder for him to strike. And I think that was really kind of just what separated the two. And then I think obviously Brendan Allen was more active with his takedowns. It didn't seem. I do think the thing I was surprised about the most was how little Brendan Allen's takedowns seemed to matter,
yeah,
because I guess we're kind of used to Brendan Allen being this kind of wear you out ground and pound guy, mostly submission attempts. But I mean, there was no real submission attempts past the first minute, the first round, and it seemed like Vettori was like pretty easily able to get up from the vast majority of Brendan Allen's takedowns. But I thought it was a really good fight. Still surprised that it got fight of the night over Max Holloway and Dustin Poirier. But not to say that it was a bad fight by any means. But it was really entertaining. And I'm just shocked that this wasn't on the main card. That's the thing that comes out of
yeah.
my mind. I don't know how Michael Johnson and Zell Huber made this and not Vittori Brendan Allen. I think
I
that's the thing
know.
I took away from it.
Yeah, you know what? I totally agree. You know what sticks out to me the most about this graphic is just look at the total strikes and then look at the head strikes and look at the color of these guys' friggin' heads, man.
No,
Oh my
no leg
God.
strikes.
No leg strikes. There's no color here, but it's all red. Like Brendan Allen literally has only redness in his head. And Vittori is kind of the
Just
same, but
CTE, man. No leg strikes, no body strikes, just CTE.
that is crazy. It's like you're right. They were speed running CTE there. Like that is an unreal stat line, but
For sure.
yeah, definitely a meathead fight. But I think there was some like beef going into this one, so I guess that makes
Oh, yeah,
sense.
they fought like in a casino or something like
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
something like that. But yeah, I think that's probably it for like big breakdowns. Some performances stuck out to me, and I know there's one that stuck out to you. Um, this one, I don't know how to say his name. Ateba, maybe. He had a really good performance. I saw someone say something like, close enough, Francis Ngannou is back because he's from Cameroon. But super powerful guy, put it on him and finished him very quickly. But I know you wanted to talk about a certain, is it a Versace model?
Yeah, well, he's a model or something.
Okay,
That's
well,
the weirdest thing for me. Like,
yeah. Talk about
why would you
redness in
become
the
an
head
MMA
again.
fighter if you're a model, bro?
There's
But
more right there. But yeah. Yeah,
like
go
this
ahead.
is the thing. Like, Islam Dulatov looks like who people would cast for a movie about UFC fighters. Like, but he doesn't. But it just looks so weird to me. Like he looks like a bar like a Ken doll essentially. And but he's like he's a really good fighter. I remember he first came on the Contender Series. I think he was like a minus 1,200 favorite or something. Got a first round knockout, and I've just been following him ever since. Like this, and it was just also weird to me like how long it took for him to actually get his first fight because if you follow Contender Series, you know they do that in the fall. So he had his Contender Series fight, I believe, like in October or maybe September, and then he's just now getting his first like debut fight in the UFC. But whatever it was, I mean, it obviously did not hinder his ability by any means because he was able to get a first round knockout, and it is going to be interesting to see just how far he goes. What is he? Oh, no, it is 170. That's what I was surprised about because I remember I was watching the fight and I was thinking, dang, this looks like a middleweight fight, and
Yeah,
then
he's big.
tell me it's 170. But very interesting. I'll be interested to see how far he goes. He kind of reminds me of like and I guess this is kind of the issue when you have like really big guys that come in from the Contender Series. Like he gives me like Bo Nickel vibes in a sense, not by his like fighting style by any means, but just like the way that he's kind of represented. Like he's kind
Yeah.
of like been treated as like this larger than life character who's just like bound to kind of go up in the divisions. And
Joe Pfeiffer too, kind of like, and
yeah,
even more because like the striking. But yeah, I totally see what you're saying.
yeah. So I mean, it'll be interesting to see how far he goes. I think it'd be better to maybe give him two or three other lower level guys before we do anything serious. But I mean, when you knock someone out in the first round on your debut,
Right
it's
before
hard
a
to.
GQ shoot too, he said he's got one on Monday.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He didn't take too much damage either, so it shouldn't hinder him too much. So
Yeah.
um, it'll be interesting to see. But it is just the weirdest thing. He doesn't sound like a real person. It's just, but that's the main takeaway I took from it, I guess.
I think you got to be pretty sick to have like a modeling career locked up and then be like, you know what I want to do also is get in cage fights
Yeah, I
three
want to
times a
do the
year.
one thing that's gonna like massively like affect how my face looks.
Yeah,
Like,
right.
let me do that.
Yeah. But yeah, that's 318. I think that's all we got to talk about there. Good card. We a lot to talk about from, you know, not a lot of stakes, I would say, except for the main event. A couple, I guess, news and notes here to kind of round things out. As I said at the beginning of the show, it was a big weekend in combat sports. Couple things. Alexander Usyk beat Daniel Dubois, fifth round KO. Majorly impressive. I wasn't watching live, and I'm assuming you weren't either, Drew, just because like the time of day and there was other stuff going on. Were you able to catch it live or?
I'm not joking. I pulled up the stream for it a minute after he knocked him
No.
out because I was sitting down and I was like on my TV or like I have like a Roku TV and I was about to pull up the early prelims and I saw like an ad saying Dubois versus Usyk and I was thinking, oh, okay, well that's not going to go till like 12 a.m. or something. I'm gonna be fine. But I was like, you know what? Let me just check StreamAce and see like when the stream is.
You mean the DAZN pay per view?
Yeah. The zone. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because sometimes like a lot of the boxing fights now are like in Abu Dhabi, so
Yeah.
they give them like weird times, and I check it, I see that it is in fact live, and the second I pull it up, they got Usyk like running around celebrating stuff, so
Yeah.
I missed out on that one a little bit. I did go to Twitter right after to see what actually had happened, but
Yeah. dude.
What's Jake Paul doing?
Okay, yeah, sorry. I realized I put that picture up a little quick. I didn't really introduce anything.
Okay,
um,
I was supposed to say, did Jake Paul call out Alexander Usyk?
a
What's
bunch of
going on here?
a bunch of stuff happened. So Usyk knocks him out, and then for some reason Jake Paul is there, and him and Usyk face off. So this moment was happened right after, like as you can tell, like a serious face off. A bunch of weird stuff is happening around Jake Paul right now. We all know that like he's constantly calling out Canelo. Supposedly he agreed to a fight with Anthony Joshua where he gets 1% and Anthony Joshua gets 99% of the profits. So I have no idea what's going on. What actually happened here is Jake Paul called out Usyk for an MMA fight, which will never happen, obviously, because Usyk is like 37 or something, and he's beating like the best boxers in the world. He's not going to fight Jake Paul in MMA. I don't. He doesn't need money. Like these are not like UFC fighters. Like they don't need. They don't.
Made like 130 million
Yeah,
from
they don't.
this one fight.
They don't need that. But yeah, that was that was news. Sorry for putting that up there before you're ready. And then other news in boxing is 46-year-old Manny Pacquiao went to a majority draw with Mario Barrios, who is, I believe, WBC welterweight champion, which is a pretty big deal. I was not expecting this. It's not. I mean, neither of us can really say we were following combat sports in the prime of Manny Pacquiao's career, but seeing a 46-year-old fighter come back in any sport, especially in a smaller, because welterweight in boxing is not 170. I don't know exactly what it is, but it's Manny Pacquiao is not 170 pounds. So the lighter you get, the harder it is to come back at those weights. And a lot of people were saying Manny Pacquiao won that fight. Again, couldn't watch the fight. It was happening at the same time as 318, but I mean, goodness gracious, how impressive is that? Drew, do you want to see? I don't know how much you care about this, but do you want to see Pacquiao Mayweather again at like 50 years old?
No, no. And don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not a boxing hater per se, but and I did see a couple clips from this fight. I will say what I noticed the most was that Pacquiao did seem slower, but his form seemed a lot better than Barrios's. It just seemed that there was that physical separation that really, honestly, like the fact that it was 50-50 just shows how good Manny Pacquiao's form was. But I mean, and maybe it's different in boxing where, like, I guess like it's the same thing with like MMA where to a certain extent you don't want to see post prime fights like for instance like when they were trying to do the GFL thing, right? Like, I don't think anyone wanted to see Tony Ferguson fight again. Even at the end of his career, I don't think people wanted to see Tony Ferguson.
Tony Ferguson, there's more news.
Oh God, not that. But I mean, like I would, and I guess my thing is I would just imagine the same context, and like you saw like the Chael Sonnen Anderson Silva boxing match. Like, I mean, obviously they're a lot older. They're not in good shape. Pacquiao seems to be in great shape. I'm sure Floyd Mayweather stays in great shape, but that fight doesn't mean anything to me. I guess they're both past their prime. There's nothing that I feel like I would get out of that fight, and that's just why I wouldn't be interested in it.
Yeah, they already fought past their prime. Like that was the problem everybody
yeah.
had. Like the first time they fought was like 10 years ago, but it was already past their prime. So like no one wants to do that again. But before we end this episode, because I feel like we could literally go down infinite rabbit holes of fight news right now because so much stuff is happening. You brought up Tony Ferguson. He is fighting Salt Poppy in Misfits Boxing on the undercard of Darren Till, Luke Rockhold, which I actually, now I'm not going to say it's going to be a super high level boxing fight, but Darren Till, Luke Rockhold in boxing is pretty fun if we get any version of Luke Rockhold that we've seen later in his UFC career. But Tony Ferguson Salt Poppy is literally the most, Tony Ferguson versus Salt Poppy is literally the most disgusting phrase I've ever. Salt Poppy's probably gonna win, but like that is so disgusting.
Well, like Salt Poppy's like 205 pounds or something, like at least.
Yeah.
Like,
he's not one of these influencers that's like terrible. Like he's
like decent.
He's
got
decent.
He's got hands a little bit.
So then we're gonna have to say Salt Poppy beat Tony Ferguson, or we're gonna say Tony Ferguson. Like there's no win here. But
I want to see how much Tony's making. All right, that's the only thing that's gonna like rationalize it for me.
That could help me out here. I mean, he was gonna fight in GFL, so I guess he's gonna fight no matter what. It just depends on what type of fighting he's gonna do. But yeah, man, that's this I feel like this turned into more of a crappy fight news segment than UFC breakdown. It seems like a lot of bad stuff just happening right now.
The title is Henry and Drew Hate
Yeah,
Combat
we
Sports.
hate everything. But a lot to look forward to this weekend. We got obviously Whitaker to Ritter, which makes me nervous. We're about to break that down right after this one, actually. We got Canelo Crawford in 2 months. That's the next big boxing fight. A lot of cool stuff in the future. I would say it's been a pretty fun year for combat sports. And yeah, I think that's it for this episode, Drew. Before we move into the next one, you feel good about that? Feel ready to move on? Sweet. All right. Well, you know the deal. I'm Henry, and we're out. Thanks so much for listening.